Greetings folks, my name is Ron Gamgee and welcome to the D20 System Development Vlog. In this video, I want to talk about the two distinct initiative systems available for D20 to be chosen by the group as they see fit. So when I use the term initiative system within the context of tabletop role-playing games, I'm simply speaking of a method of determining the turn order in combat scenes or action scenes where turn order is essential to the outcome of the events. The reason I've made initiative systems that are not D&D's roll to see when you can act at the beginning of combat and having it stay that way is because I find that to be static and, as a consequence, boring. This I attack, you attack, I attack, you attack, regardless of the types of attack being used, it's basically a slapping contest without the rush. So regardless of the initiative system used, combat starts when someone in the scene performs an action intended to harm another, or when it looks like two or more characters in the scene are going to throw down. Once that happens, the combat round starts. And also, regardless of which initiative system is used, each combat round is 3 seconds long, and each combatant can perform 3 seconds worth of activity on their turn. Well, up to 3 seconds worth of activity on their turn. So the first of the two initiative systems that are available for D20 is called Tactical Turn Order. Now the aim of Tactical Turn Order is to have faster actions go before slower actions, and for actions of the same priority to occur simultaneously. So at the start of the combat round, each player tells the GM what their character is doing along with their intention, just to make it clear, what they're trying to accomplish. The GM secretly determines the actions that their NPCs are performing. Now at the table, it will be prudent for players to write down their character action and intention in shorthand on a 3x5 card with a pencil, so that they and the GM can refer back to it as necessary or as needed. So after the actions have been determined, the GM makes use of a priority list to determine who acts when. So the priority list is as follows, and this is something that the GM would want to have handy on like a sheet of paper. So there's the first tier priority. This is combatants who have their attacks primed for release, such as sharpshooters that have already taken aim, spellcasters holding the spell that's already charged, and combatants with their weapons at their target's throats or ribs or etc. The second tier priority is where combatants with a reach advantage over their targets, such as ranged over melee, longer melee weapon over a shorter melee weapon in wide spaces, or in cramped spaces, the character with the shorter melee weapon over the character with a longer melee weapon, and faster melee weapons over slower melee weapons. The third priority would be essentially those situations, but then the person who is at the reach disadvantage. So like in wider spaces, if it's like dagger versus sword, the sword and they're engaged, the sword attack would have the second priority, and the dagger would have like the third tier priority. Or in wide spaces, unarmed versus armed, or slower weapon versus faster weapon, etc. Also, disengaging from a melee opponent who is engaged with you. Engaged is a term of like two people that are like squaring off against each other. The fourth tier priority would be combatants that have to move within the same zone, basically like an extract like space that one can conceivably move in like 3 seconds, like say like a living room or something like that, in order to get within their weapon's range. So the further the combatant must move to engage their target, the later they act. The slower the attacker moves, the later they act. And then the fifth tier priority are non-attacking actions that take at least 3 seconds to perform without interruption. Now, if the action takes longer than 3 seconds, then the time spent contributes to its overall execution when it happens in later rounds, and then, or if it gets interrupted, it resets. Moving to an adjacent zone counts as a 3-second action. So basically, like moving from the living room to the backyard or whatever. Basically, another room, another chunk of area. Now, all actions within the same priority occur simultaneously. So it's possible for two combatants who act on the same priority to actually take each other out. Because it's not, even though like you don't necessarily have everyone roll at the same time, that would be extremely chaotic, which is the case for like wild talents and one roll engine combat. You can have it so that, you know, attacker A deals enough damage to kill attacker B, but since you still have to determine what attacker B in the same priority does to attacker A, it could be that attacker B also deals enough damage to kill attacker A, and then once you move on to the next priority, you know, that happens and it's like you know, double KO. So if you're taking an action that's not represented by the examples provided for each priority tier, work out what the closest analog would be with your GM and slot your action in that priority. And once every combatant has performed their action, then they can declare their action for the next round, and the execution of those actions occurs based on the priority dictated by their new situation. And you keep doing that until the combat or action scene ends. Now, the second of the two initiative systems that are available for D20 is called card-based turn order. So the aim of card-based turn order is to have a round-by-round turn order determination that's quickly established with the use of playing cards, with jokers included. So again, you know, each combatant declares their 3 seconds of activity for the round. Then the GM, you know, they shuffle a deck of playing cards, or rather, the GM would shuffle a deck of playing cards first, you know, just to like get that done, you know, with the jokers included, and they declare their actions, and then he would pass out one card to each player, as well as one for every like meaningful NPC combatant group involved, and that's determined, you know, by the GM. Now, turn order starts at ace, not king, and then goes down to 2. So, you know, the cards are passed, and then the GM will call out like the cards, like ace, king, queen, jack, 10, and so on. And then when a person like has a card that the GM calls, you know, they let them know, and then they perform their actions. In case of ties, that's resolved in reverse suit order, meaning, so like spades would go first, then hearts, then diamonds, and clubs are last. Yeah, and that order is determined because spades starts with S, and then hearts starts with H, and so on and so forth. Once all actions are resolved, then the GM passes out one play card to each combatant at the start of the next round to determine turn order. So it's really quick, you know, you don't have to deal with, okay, roll again, tell me your numbers, let me arrange them. No, it's just bam, 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 bam. You just pass them out. And that process occurs until the combat or action scene ends. Now, when it's your turn, you can choose to carry out your declared action, or if you want to do something else, you hold your turn until everyone else has acted, and then you do you get to declare what you want to do, and you act after everyone else has acted. If there are multiple combatants that are holding their turns, you know, you make note of like the card that you have, and then from there you determine once everyone else has done their initially declared actions, like what they would do. Now, when a combatant or an NPC group draws a joker, they can take their turn whenever they want in the round, even if it interrupts another's action. Furthermore, on their action test, they can roll 2d20s and use the better of the two rolls. Now, if the NPC combatant group gets the joker, then only one combatant within that group can roll 2d20s and take the better of both rolls. Otherwise, it'd be OP if you'd have like, oh, a combatant group of 3 like kobolds or something, and then they get the joker, and whatever sucker they land on, you know, that they like encroach upon, each one of them rolls like 2d20s and just wrecks this guy. No. So after the round where the joker is drawn, that's when the GM would reshuffle the deck. So far in my playtest sessions, I've used tactical turn order because that's the method that I felt I need to familiarize myself with and get a feel for first. I feel that tactical turn order is closer to my vision of having a combat system where combatants all act simultaneously, and that things would happen when it would make sense for them to happen, rather than combatants waiting on their turn to act and being locked in place beforehand. Tactical turn order does take some time to get used to, but once the logic of it is internalized by the group, I suspect that it can go about as quickly as card-based turn order while maintaining that greater sense of simultaneity, of things happening as they naturally should. The card-based turn order is there for groups that want to retain some familiarity with D&D's initiative system of, you know, you go first, you go next, you go next, even though the card-based system is heavily derived from Savage Worlds' initiative system, which also uses cards. But the main difference is that in D20, everyone declares what they do, and then the card determines when they do it. Whereas in Savage Worlds, the cards are distributed, and then when it's your turn, you decide what you want to do. Now, card-based turn order can act as a stepping stone to tactical turn order, or it can simply be the default method used for groups who just want to spice up their chess-like turn order of play. If you like or dislike anything you've seen in this video, please give it a like or a dislike and leave a comment. Subscribe if you want to support my channel, and if you really want to support my endeavors, head over to my Patreon and become an appreciated trooper. The link is in the description. Until then, folks, take care and play to find out what happens.